During this holiday season, give your loved ones a gift that keeps on giving for the rest of their life. Torpedo Pot is the only affordable self-growing flower pot that ensures your future food survival. All you do is add soil, seeds, and seedlings to the flower pot and watch your plants grow. Torpedo Pot can grow nutritious food in such abundance and variety that you can produce more food than your local farm. Visit www.torpedopot.com.
So we want to cover a little history here about the Civil War because, in school, they don't really teach you anything about our history. Now, they say before dawn on May 13th, 1862, Robert Smalls stealthily took command of a Confederate steamer, the CSS Planter, and steered it out of the Charleston harbor. The brother was 23 years old who had worked as a slave aboard the vessel, brought 15 other enslaved people with him, including his wife and their two young children. Smalls knew he might be killed by Confederate guards as he attempted to reach the Union's fleet off of the Atlantic coast. Now, word of Smalls' daring escape quickly spread throughout the North, and in a report that merged admiration with racial bigotry. Like, wow, that's interesting. But they were jealous, right? The New York Tribune proclaimed this man, though black, is a hero, one of the few history would delight to honor. It said he has done something for his race and for the world of mankind. Now, on May the 30th, they say Abraham Lincoln signed a law awarding prize money to Smalls for delivering the planter and his cargo to federal authorities. The influential black minister Henry McNeil Turner called Smalls a living example of unquestionable African heroism, right? They say in August, Smalls traveled to Washington, D.C., where he met with Lincoln at the White House. They say perhaps the most consequential meeting Lincoln had with a black American in the first 2 years of his administration. It's a critical period in Lincoln's evolving policy on black citizenship. They say in the ensuing months and years, arguments by black Americans who visited Lincoln and the president's willingness to listen would change the course of history. While many historians and biographers, as they have traced the evolution of Lincoln's sentiments about emancipation and equality for black Americans, few have recognized the central ways that Lincoln's personal interactions with black Americans, from Smalls to Union Army Surgeon Anderson Ruffin Abbott, the first black Canadian to graduate from medical school, shaped his thinking. Now, during Smalls' first meeting with Lincoln, he urged the president to allow black men to join the Union Army. Since the beginning of the Civil War, Lincoln had rejected black volunteers in part because he had no confidence they would fight well. But after meeting Smalls, who had secured his own liberty with such bravery, Lincoln finally embraced the idea of enlisting black troops. Smalls departed Washington, D.C., bearing a letter from the War Department that authorized the raising of black volunteers in South Carolina. Now, thanks to Smalls, Lincoln had come to see that arming black men was not a question of sentiment or taste, but one of physical force. Now, the service of black soldiers, in short, was essential to winning the war. Still, after black Americans were allowed to join the Union Army, they didn't receive equal treatment. Now, we talking about these good Northern folks here, because, the narrative has been, all those Confederates in the South, they was the sole, they was the enslavers, and us in the North, they wouldn't like that, and they treated black people so well, and all of that. They would never treat black people bad. Okay, well, this is what our brothers, was starting to go through as they enlisted into the U.S. Army. So they served in segregated units. Well, I thought only the South did that, right? So it seemed like those liberals in the North was just as racist as the Confederates in the South. They often received subpar weapons and equipment, and were frequently tasked with doing menial labor, such as digging ditches or building fortifications rather than fighting. Further, federal authorities, were determined to underpay black soldiers by designating them as laborers rather than soldiers. They enlisted expecting $13 a month, but only received $10 a month. So the $13 a month that they were supposed to receive, like the white soldiers had received, was about $357 in today's standards. But the brothers had only received $10 a month, which is equivalent to $275 in today's standards. And they say, unlike the white soldiers, they had another $3 deducted from their pay as a clothing allowance. So it went from $10 to down to $7. And that $7 is basically $192. So they had their salary cut big time for a clothing allowance. But the white ones wasn't paying that. It say a soldier, it say in the infamous 54th Massachusetts Infantry, wrote directly to Lincoln and said, "We appeal to you, sir, as executive of the nation, to have us justly dealt with. They also face much steeper consequences if captured. Confederate authority threatened to kill or enslave black soldiers taken alive on the battlefield." So on August 10, 1863, Frederick Douglass met with Lincoln and urged him to protect black soldiers from Confederate threats by retaliating in kind and degree without delay upon Confederate prisoners in his hands. It said he also pressed Lincoln to give black soldiers equal pay. It said Lincoln considered retaliation a terrible remedy and said that if he could get hold of the Confederate soldiers who had been guilty of treating colored soldiers as felons, he could easily retaliate. But he did not wish to punish soldiers for the heinous practices of their political leaders. He didn't wish to hang the soldiers. He said for a crime perpetrated by others. He said the president also said the lower pay rate was temporary, but a necessary concession to white racism. Let me stop right there. The necessary concession to white racism. That's what we still deal with today. The reason why they don't give black people a hate crime bill is the necessary concession to white racism. The reason why they don't give reparations to black people, that is a necessary concession to white racism. You get that? Anything that would benefit black people, they don't do it because it is a necessary concession to white racism. This is what Abraham Lincoln said, and it's still that way to this day. Now, they said a way to ease white Northerners into supporting the enlistment of black soldiers. Nevertheless, Lincoln assured Douglass that black soldiers would ultimately receive the same pay. Douglass had his doubts, writing, "While I could not agree with Lincoln on every point, I could but respect his humane spirit." And in 1864, Lincoln did sign a law equalizing the pay of those black soldiers who had been free before the war. Now, a crucial way to subdue disloyal sentiment in the South would be to create a new loyal black electorate. That year, numerous other black advocates went to Lincoln to make direct claims for full citizenship. See, on March the 3rd, two Creoles from New Orleans visited the White House to hand Lincoln a petition calling for wealthy, free black men in their state, which is now under Union control, to have the right to vote. In language that echoed the Declaration of Independence, they told Lincoln that they were ready to sacrifice their fortunes and their lives for the country and the Constitution. The petitioners Arnold Betternau, it said, and Jean Baptiste Rudinez, it said, noted that the free black population of New Orleans had spilled their blood for the Union cause, just as their forebears had done in the War of 1812. Said, "We are men, treat us as such," they said, as they called for those inalienable rights, it said, which belong to the condition of citizens of the great American Republic. The petition bore around 1,000 signatures, including those of 28 black veterans who fought with Andrew Jackson at the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. In response to the petition, Lincoln told his visitors that he must first finish the big job on his hands crushing the rebellion, and say if giving black Americans the right to vote became necessary to close the war, he would not hesitate to support it. And he said, for he saw no reason why intelligent black men should not vote. He said, but this was not a military question, and he believed it was be handled by the civil authorities in Louisiana. Said still, he assured his guests that he would support their request whenever they could show that black suffrage would help restore the Union. Now, he said a week later, on March the 10th, Rudinez and Bartineau submitted a new petition that reframed and expanded their request. Now they asked for the right to vote for all black men in Louisiana, including those who were poor and uneducated or had been born into bondage. Expanded suffrage in this way, they contended, would give full effect to the Union feeling in the rebel states in order to secure the permanence of the free institutions and governments now organized therein. Now, such rights especially ought to be given to black men, it said, who vindicated their right to vote by bearing arms. In other words, a crucial way to subdue disloyal sentiment in the South would be to create a new loyal black electorate. I said Rudinez and Bartineau had crafted a rationale that connected black suffrage to the winning the war and sustaining the peace. Black voters would help create and maintain pro-union majorities in the South. Lincoln found the argument compelling and almost immediately adopted their view, but on March 13th, he sent a letter to the Louisiana governor-elect Michael Hahn suggesting that black men who were intelligent and who fought in their ranks be granted the franchise. Such voters, Lincoln said, would probably help in some trying time and to keep the jewel of liberty within the family of freedom. But Lincoln's eloquence captured the idea that America wouldn't be truly free country until black Americans were fully integrated into civic life. And so he had hinted at this idea a few months earlier at Gettysburg, saying this nation under God should have a new birth of freedom in order that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from the earth. Now, part of that new birth meant counting black Americans as the people, while most white Southerners were fighting to destroy the Republic. And let's talk about that. We talk about American history. When they say the South will rise again, those people wanted to destroy America. Anybody waving that Confederate flag wants to destroy America. See, if they really would take these so-called Confederates and everybody waving that flag seriously, they should be jailed for not only insurrection, but they should be jailed for treason. Period. That flag should never be waved in this country because that was a flag that meant to destroy America. They wouldn't let no freaking terrorist group come over here waving the flag and doing all kind of things. They wouldn't dare allow that to happen. They would shut that down so quick. So why are they letting them do it? But we know why they let them do it. Now, Lincoln had become convinced that black Americans would vote to uphold the principles the nation was founded on, and black political participation would be essential for maintaining the Republican government in America during Reconstruction and beyond. Yes, black people was originally Republicans. We were not Democrats. Democrats was the party of the South. Republicans was the ones that gave black people the chance to do everything that they started to do in this country. I'm just talking about American history. The following month, in April 1864, a delegation of black North Carolinians asked Lincoln to support black suffrage in their state. It's led by a former enslaved man named Abraham H. Galloway. It said the delegation's petition, as they quoted the Declaration of Independence, had reminded Lincoln that free black men had joined voting rights in North Carolina from 1776 to 1835. They asked him to finish the noble work you have begun by granting the greatest of privileges to exercise the right of suffrage. It said the petitioners pledged to fight the rebellion until every cloud of war shall disappear and your administration shall be justified by the sure results that will follow. Now, Lincoln told his visitors he had labored hard for the good of the colored race and would continue to do so. He also assured them his sympathy in the struggle. He said they were making their rights. He said, but as voting was a state matter, he said it would be, attended to once North Carolina resumes its place in the Union. Now, seeing the bravery of black men in uniform, as well as meeting with black Americans, had transformed Lincoln's thinking on equality. As a young politician in the 1830s and 1840s, he had ridiculed the thought of black men wielding the ballot. As recently as the Lincoln-Douglas debates in 1858, he said he opposed making voters or jurors of Negroes. Now, less than 7 years later, he would take the opposite position in a very public way. So on April 11, 1865, Lincoln delivered a speech from the White House balcony, publicly calling for educated black men and those who had served as soldiers to be given the right to vote. It said it had taken him some time to reach the decision. It would be the last speech he ever gave, said John Wilkes Booth. It said, listening in the audience below growled that Lincoln was calling for black American citizenship. He said, now by God, I put him through. He said, Booth said, the actor gunned down. He said Lincoln 3 days later, but Booth was powerless to stop the forces that black petitioners had set in motion during the Civil War. And in 1870, the 15th Amendment was ratified, making it illegal for a state to deprive citizens the right to vote on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Over the ensuing years, black voters would help elect hundreds of black Americans to political offices at all levels, including Robert Smalls, a former slave that had secured his own freedom aboard the Planter in 1862, representing South Carolina in the House of Representatives for 10 years, starting in 1875. So you need to know this history, and that's why we wanted to make sure to talk to you today about this history. That you've been taught that Abraham Lincoln just woke up one day and say, "Oh wow, I feel for those black people. Let me just go ahead and free them." No, black people, black men, kept hollering at Lincoln constantly. Hey, man, this is what we need to do. Hey, we need to get in this military. Hey, we won't fight for America too now. They say, hey, we love this country. We'll fight for it. Let us get in the army. So we fought for our own freedom. We lobbied. We constantly, black men, our ancestors, went to President Lincoln at the time. He clearly didn't support black people voting. He didn't support black people being free or nothing. But he changed that through black men showing him, hey, this is what we need to do here in this country. So they have taught you in school that white folks are just in the North were just so, oh, I'm sorry, those poor black people enslaved. Let's fight a war. No, because the way they were treated, even in the Union Army, was racist as well. But the brothers fought for that equal pay. So they end up getting their equal pay later. You understand? But the thing that Abraham Lincoln said, it was a necessary compromise. That's still going on to this day. That's why I had to home in on that earlier. So when you look at the time of the Civil War and what happened, we fought for everything that we ever gotten. No white man or white woman woke up one day and just say, I'm going to be the white savior to black people. From the time we got here to now, we have fought. None of these other groups that's here today fought nothing in this country. They didn't. It was the black American that have fought hard, secured our freedom, secured the freedom of others, even in other countries. It was the black American. We have a great history. We are a courageous, people. We should be proud of that. Understand? We are a smart people. And think about it. They said black men, even in that time, had wealth. We weren't on just no lowly slaves forever. Because black people, even though they came here and a lot of them as slaves, they still know how to make something out of nothing. That's the beauty of what, God has given us, the ability to make something out of nothing. Take a little bit and multiply it, just like in the Bible. So make sure you always know the correct American history. This is American history. Because, they got all these bills right now in public school, especially in the red states, where they don't want you to know American history. Everything they told you about the Civil War and even the participation of black folks in the Civil War has been a freaking lie. Lincoln changed his mind based off of black men talking to him. Our brother, Robert Smalls, brother was a slave, stole a whole ship and flew it away from there and still got 15 other slaves free. We like in slavery, we wasn't just on there, we got to work all day. And no, black folks was constantly rebelling, constantly burning down master's house. I mean, come on now. I mean, we are not no punks. We are a proud group of people, and we have a great history, and we should be proud of it. Just like other groups come here and they're proud of their country and proud of where they come from, and that's cool. Be proud of that. But we as black Americans should be proud of this too. And I'm a firm believer. We could build here in America. We can do great things here in America, and we also can do great things abroad too. Black people have saved this country multiple times. It wouldn't be in America. It wouldn't be for black people. Let's call it what it is. Because you left it up to them, America would have been destroyed a long time ago. Trust me on that. Always be proud of our ancestors, what they built, where we come from. We are Americans. We are. Saying we're Americans is a testament to our ancestors. So even though I love Africa and all of that, I'm always going to represent for black America. Always. That's my people. That's where I come from. This is my tribe. I connect with the diaspora all day long because they're my people too. But understand, this is the soil that my ancestors, toiled in. This is where I was born. This is where my grandparents were born. My people were slaves on sugarcane plantations in Louisiana. Understand? My people fought back too, even in the continent of Africa, with the tribe that I come from. It's the Balanta tribe, which means one who resists, right? Out of Guinea-Bissau. My people has always been fighters. from way back to that time period when my people was on the continent until the time we had to come over here through the slave trade. So understand, American history is important. Don't let these folks lie to you. But leave me a comment. Let us think about the situation here with all our great brothers, advocating and fighting for freedom. Because we should always honor our brothers and sisters who've done the great work for our community. Colonization never ended in the white supremacist system. And as we see today, the colonization is in the mind. Now, those who have been enslaved and those who have been colonized, we're still dealing with the remnants of that through the colonization of the mind. Pick up my book, 7 Steps to Decolonize the Mind, and we will help deprogram you from the colonization that was put upon you by generations and generations of white supremacy. You can pick it up today on Amazon.com.